Okay, our speaker today is Bill Whitley. He is a minister with the Metaphysical Chapel of Life and has been a chapel member since October 25th, 1985. Bill currently serves as president of the board of directors of the Church of Enlightenment and as the lead minister with the Metaphysical Chapel of Life. Bill is a founding member of the Church of Enlightenment, November the 9th, 1997, and the Metaphysical Chapel of Life, chartered through the Church of Enlightenment, April 26, 1998. Bill was instrumental in helping to establish both organizations. Bill previously served on the board of directors of the Bridge of Light and was a founding minister with the Chapel of Life, chartered through the Bridge of Light, April the 11th, 1986. Bill was a guiding influence that helped the Chapel of Life evolve into the current Metaphysical Chapel of Life. So, I introduce you now to our speaker, Reverend Bill.
Good morning. Good morning. As most of you who have heard me speak before know that I always give a title to what I'm going to talk about. So the title of my talk this morning is Cultivate Your Garden. And I also always read from Scripture. So I'd like to quote it from Scripture this time, and I'm quoting from Can't even speak this morning. Ecclesiastes 2.5 from the Amplified Bible. I made for myself gardens and orchards, and I planted them in them all kinds of fruit trees. I have, for the most part of my life, and when I say most part, I mean all of it essentially. Spent a lot of time outdoors, contemplating nature and the world that is all around me. So I want to share a little bit about that before I get into the depth of what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to share with you something that I've never shared with you before. We all know each other. No matter how close our relationships are to each other, there's always something about the other person or the other persons in your life that you don't know, that they've never shared with you. Always. You may think no, but that's not true. And there's always something within you that you know you've never shared with anyone. So I'm going to share with you this morning something you don't know about me and would not know about me if it hadn't been for the thought process I put into what I want to say today. During my childhood years, primarily during my teenage years, as I said, I spent a lot of time outdoors. So when I'd go to school every day and I'd come home every day, the first thing that I would do as soon as my books hit the table was grab my fishing pole and go to the pond. And I went fishing every single day after I got home from school. That led to something. That led to my friends, childhood friends, having a nickname for me. And I've got a lot of nicknames associated with my name, William. So we all know there are a lot of nicknames associated with William. But my friends didn't call me by those nicknames. They didn't call me Billy. They didn't call me Bill. They didn't call me Willie, and they didn't call me Will. They called me Fish. So When I see those childhood friends nowadays, they don't call me Billy, they don't call me Bill, they call me William, they don't call me Will, they call me Fish. But they still call me Fish. Now, still every day, at some point during the day, I go outside, and Debbie knows that. Sometimes she wonders why I spend so much time outside, because I can get outside and get lost, not come in for lunch or anything else, and be in the woods somewhere. And what do? I feed the birds, I feed the deer, I feed the squirrels, the raccoons, and all of the other animals that live in the yard and the woods surrounding our house. I walk the yard each day, picking up pine cones, gumballs, sticks, and stones. And in my walks, I am familiar with each tree, each bush, each plant, the grass and the moss that covers the ground upon which I walk. There are sometimes brief moments during my walks when all thought ceases to exist. And I know that I am at one with all that is around me. As in this moment, when I look around this room, I know that I am at one with each of you. The contemplation of nature all around leads you to the contemplation of the world within. When you contemplate the world within, you are cultivating your own garden. The last snow we had was on February 20th, and it's quite interesting that our spring equinox celebration will occur on March 20th. We could just view that as a coincidence, or we could say it's a synchronicity. Spiritual synchronicity refers to the meaningful coincidences that seem to defy chance, suggesting a deeper connection between our inner world and external reality, potentially indicating guidance or alignment with a higher purpose. The spring equinox celebration and ceremony is about entering the season of planting seeds of growth. The seeds that we plant in the earth are symbolic of the seeds of spiritual, mental, and emotional growth that we plant within ourselves during the spring equinox ritual ceremony. On the morning of February the 20th, we were still having flurries after the night of heavy snow. And we all know that, okay? And that was a big snow for us, biggest we've had in a long time. I went outside to take pictures, and one of the first things I noticed was the top of the daffodils had been peeking out of the snow. The daffodils are usually the first flowers to push their way up through the still hard earth to announce the coming of spring. They also are the first reminders that it's time to buy seeds, plants, fertilizer, and garden soil to start our garden. Once our seed and plants are in the ground, we begin the process of cultivating our garden. We are now in that period that we all begin to have the thoughts of the cultivation of our own garden. My thoughts now turn not to the cultivation of my garden of the soil, but to my garden of the soul. I and everyone else who comes here is looking for something. Something that lifts them out of the darkness, cold, and snow of winter into the light and warmth of spring. A warmth that is lasting and lifts us up to make us happy. So what do we think that it is that we are seeking? A spiritual path that we can feel truly appeals to us? A spiritual path that will make us happy? I'd like now to share with you a quote from Edgar Cayce. Do not look for success in dollars and cents, and not in the spiritual life. Do not look for success in dollars and cents, and not in the spiritual life. For first, add spiritual life, and truly, all of these things will be added unto you. Now, I have to tell you, and I have to admit, I had a hard time with that quote. But as we always say, it's all about the spiritual life. It's all about the spiritual path. It's all about being on the spiritual path. But the spiritual path, depending on how you're on it, how you understand and how you know your soul within, can be like the path of money. Isn't being spiritual supposed to be what it's all about? Isn't that why I'm supposed to be here talking to you? Aren't we all who are here on this path? Aren't we all who are here and on this path supposed to be teachers to lead others to the spiritual path? Let's say that again. Aren't we all who are here and on this path supposed to be teachers to lead others to the spiritual path? I think that I've always known, and didn't have to have Edgar Cayce or anybody else to tell me, that we cannot find success, happiness in the pursuits of dollars and cents. However, I have always believed that the way to success, happiness, was to look for the spiritual life. So where does that leave me? How do I add spiritual life if I am not looking for success in the spiritual life? Say that again. Here's the question. How do I add the spiritual life if I am not looking for success in spiritual life? Cultivate your garden. Religion is finite. Spirituality is infinite. A structured dogma, doctrine, or guidance is religion, and it is finite. An unstructured guidance that encourages one to follow their own inner guidance is infinite. Religion is based on atonement. Spirituality is based on at one met. The spelling is exactly the same. There is no difference. Atonement and at one-ment are exactly the same, but they're not. At one-ment with nature. Spirituality is based on at one-ment. At one-ment with others. Spirituality is based on at one-ment. At one-ment with God. When we realize that we are truly at one with God, then we know we are at one with all. We are at one with the great all. When I took yoga using the Bahajan Kundalini class technique, this is Kundalini yoga that I took, we were taught a mantra to help us understand. And we always did this mantra to every Kundalini yoga class I went to. So I learned that mantra, and then repeatedly doing the mantra makes it a part of you inside. It's sort of like the lecture I did about the earworm on Christmas. You get a song in your head, and that's called an earworm. You can't get it out. You say a mantra over and over enough, it becomes an earworm also in your head, and you can't get it out, and it becomes a part of you. And that mantra goes, I am God, God am I and God are one. I am God, God am I, God and I are one. I'd like now to share a couple more quotes. And both of these quotes are by Deepak Chopra. And the first one is, religion is belief in someone else's experience. Spirituality is having your own experience. And the second, walk with those seeking truth. Run from those who think they have found it. Spirit is not going to make you spiritual. Only you can choose to make you spiritual. Spirit only comes to you by invitation. If you want spirituality in your life, choose to be spiritual. So how does one choose to be spiritual? Based on the quote I already gave you about money and spiritual life. Okay? So how does one choose to be spiritual? By simply being. If you want to be spiritual, simply be. Who you are, what you are, by your own definition. In other words, own your own self. Own your own self. Do not allow others to define you. Do not allow others to define your spirituality. Plant your own seed. Cultivate your own garden. Grow your own soul. I'd like to give you the Casey quote again so you remember what I said. Do not look for success in dollars and cents, and not in the spiritual life. For first add the spiritual life, and truly all these things will be added unto you. So, what I got out of that was, if I pursue the spiritual life in the same manner as pursuing the dollar, there's no difference. Because I'm still pursuing something. I'm still pursuing the dollar, but only I'm calling it spiritual. I'm still doing that pursuit and grabbing. Earlier I talked about the daffodils were the first flowers to poke their blooms out after that last melting snow of winter, which I saw in February, okay? Winter is a time when everything shuts down. Bears hibernate. Raccoons semi-hibernate, except this winter our raccoons did not semi-hibernate. They were knocking on the door every night, and again last night, so they didn't ever go to sleep. So I don't know why, maybe the climate change or whatever, but our raccoons did not hibernate. So that may not be totally correct. They sometimes hibernate and sometimes don't. The squirrels only come to eat the nuts they have buried, and the birds fly south. So everything is in a state of depression. Depression is not necessarily a negative word. It simply implies to shut down. Snow happens to be a symbol for depression in that it shuts everything down. However, when the sunlight shines on the snow, it glistens and a warmth builds up in the snow and causes it to melt. The daffodil awakens and is reborn. So on a symbolic level, snow is more than a metaphor for depression. The symbol for snow is a double-edged sword. It can be a metaphor for depression or purity and spirituality. We just need to know how to apply it symbolically. Happy is a choice you make. Like the flowers choose to break through the snow and ice of winter into the warmth and light of spring. So choose to cultivate the garden of your soul. The seeds that you choose to plant, feed, and water will determine what you grow. Buddha was asked, what is the difference between I like you and I love you? Buddha answered, when you like a flower, you just pluck it. But when you love a flower, you water it daily. You are the flower. Each year in the winter, a tree loses all of its leaves and it is a dormant state, a state of depression. However, in the spring, the tree regrows its leaves, and so it is reborn. It is the same tree, but it is not the same tree. It is growing new leaves and new bark and becoming a new tree. We are like the tree. We too are reborn. I'd like to close by sharing a poem. And the title of the poem is The Garden. I cultivate a garden more beautiful than seen. I cultivate a garden filled with only dreams. The flowers in my garden from God's love were shown. The flowers in my garden until now unborn. I cultivate a garden which all now may need. I cultivate a garden. God will sow the seed. The flowers in my garden are all alive and warm. The flowers in my garden are all souls now reborn. I cultivate a garden where God's love will show. I cultivate a garden where God's love will grow. The flowers in my garden are all flesh and bone. The flowers in my garden are all souls atoned. I cultivate a garden more beautiful than seen. I cultivate a garden filled with only dreams. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Reverend Bill. Very nice.